Morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome members, officers, and any public watching at home to this meeting of the Cabinet Subcommittee for Local Authority Trading Companies Shareholders. Before we proceed, I'd like to invite the committee member, scrutiny manager, to explain proceedings and conduct a roll call of officers attending remotely, if there are any.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, we have no officers joining us remotely. Everyone's in person. So for members, where voting is required, votes will be cast using the yes, no, abstain buttons on the microphone units. Should a member wish to speak, they should press the speak button on the microphone unit, and the Chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the Chair invites you to speak, your microphone will turn red, at which point you can speak. Are there any questions? No. Back to you then, Chair.
Thank you. Apologies for absence. No apologies have been received. We're all present. Minutes from the 1st of March 2023. I propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meetings of the subcommittee held on the 1st of March 2023. Can I have a seconder?
It'll have to be me, won't it? So, yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Any comments? I can't see any. Any objections to approving these sets of minutes? I think we could just do the, yeah, that's agreed. And I think, and obviously, Alice, I think you were abstaining as you weren't here. Notification of other business, there is none. Chair's announcements, meeting's been audio and video recorded and live streamed on YouTube. The recordings will be available following the meeting on the Council's YouTube page and on ModGov. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the Chair's announcements on the agenda. Public participation, there is none, which takes us to the main item of the meeting, Hertfordshire Building Control Amendment to a Shareholder Agreement, and Service Director Ian Fullstone to present. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. With your consent, as we have a new member of the subcommittee, perhaps a bit of background and then go through the report in a bit more detail than normal. So, building control within local authority has been and still is in a number of authorities a struggling service. It's a small specialist area which is open to private sector competition. Therefore, it tends to be a bit of a burden on the general fund. Around 2013, 7 Hertfordshire authorities, Stevenage, Hertsmere, Three Rivers, ourselves, East Herts, Welling and Broxbourne, looked at an alternative way of delivering the service. Out of that came a limited group of companies under the umbrella company Brost Rivers, Herts Building Control being the company that delivers the statutory duty. That is, we are building control of last resort and we deal with things like dangerous structures, demolitions that the private sector can't. The 7 commenced the initial private limited company in 2019. Decorum requested to join and they were accepted. In 2021, a number of other companies were purchased to be able to kind of increase the offer that was available through the building control group of companies. As a result of kind of the changes with Decorum joining and with the looking at the group of companies, there was a period of time where we were coming to the end of the current service agreement. It was a 5-year service agreement with Hertfordshire Building Control, and there was a number of initial groups set up to monitor the group of companies, and it was all considered necessary to have a look at it. And a report came here in March 2023, whereby a rolling service contract was agreed. The company approved itself, and we decided that a rolling contract would be better. And as a result of that, the inter-authority agreement, which is the agreement between the 8 Hertfordshire authorities and the company, was looked at as well. That was March 2023. Whilst the directors and the shareholder representatives were looking at the inter-authority agreement and the service agreement, it seemed sensible to look at the only final legal agreement left, which was the shareholder agreement. We did that with Trowers and Hamlin, external specialist legal company, and they assisted us in the setting up of the company as well. There was a number of changes from best practice that they recommended, and also that we'd found there was a number of kind of, not obstacles to delivery of service, but things that could be done better. So we took that opportunity to do it, which is why we're here today seeking consent to amend the shareholder agreement. So 8.3 it's an existing section within the shareholder agreement. This is where it's required to have unanimous shareholder decisions. The only real change there is an extension to the definition of the registration of a person, and that definition is extended to include partnerships, trust companies. So it's a fine-tuning, if you like, by the external legal company. There was also a unanimous decision was required for the making of a loan. What's been suggested in there is that there's an exemption for staff incentive schemes approved by the company's board. We then look at the 75% shareholder decisions. Again, a fine tuning of one, changing the name of the company or its registered office. To get a 75% seemed a bit burdensome, so it was suggested that if the company changes its registered office to another within Hertfordshire, then it would be the board's responsibility. It wasn't necessary to be a shareholder decision. The only point it would be a shareholder decision if they decided to set up in Glasgow, Inverness, or somewhere outside of Hertfordshire, because it's Hertfordshire Building Control. It delivers to 8 Hertfordshire authorities. In addition to that, the discussions led to 2 new suggestions coming forward. One was a simple majority shareholder decision, and that was, it seemed sensible to have a simple majority decision for the declaring and paying of a dividend and the dismissing of a director for any reason. So they were the 2 areas that we thought was sensible to have a simple majority as opposed to a 75% or a unanimous. And then to ease the delivery of the service, we included the suggestion of a board decision as well. If the board of directors decided the company needed a specialist, and the fire safety legislation around high-rise buildings is a good example of something. So if a bit of legislation changes or something and a consultant was required, or a consultant was required to deliver the service, it seems sensible that that would be a board decision as opposed to a shareholder decision. If you look at the shareholder decisions, it's a subcommittee decision. There's no delegation down to myself as the representative. So it's speed around the delivery of the service and the good of the company. In addition to that, 8.6 links to the recommendations, because there'll be other bits and pieces that need to be added to the shareholder agreement. There'll be a paragraph in there about termination of the original shareholder agreement. There'll be protocols in a schedule with regard to removal of a director. There's an acknowledgement of the procurement bill currently going through legislation, dispute resolution provisions, as well as an awful lot of just typographical and formatting that will be required as well. That's it, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Open to questions. Mr. Keith, and he's... Good to flick your microphone on, Keith.
Sorry, yeah. Why did we pick? I mean, is 50,000 just an arbitrary sum, or is that?
Thank you. I'd like to think that I'm sure there's a better word than arbitrary, but it seemed a sensible threshold, shall we say.
Okay.
Any other questions? And from those consequential sort of amendments that you've listed in sort of 8.6, they are they ones that I think at least that the committee would want sight of, even if we're happy to obviously to delegate to officers to agree them, if we can kind of make sure that we've actually seen them, as well as obviously, but happy with the delegation on the understand that these are relatively minor and not particularly sort of consequential for that. Is that?
Yeah, more than happy to send to the committee perhaps a track change version or something like that, just so you can see what it is that the Director of Legal and myself are actually moving forward on.
That sounds fine. Perfect. Any other questions? Jeanette? sort of.
I don't seem to have things. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
try that one. Yes.
Just for clarification though, because I had we have actually gone through with other legal officers and looked at this document, and there's a little bit of pressure on us to sign this off today. In circulating that agreement to you, what's the outcome of that? Do you want some time to consider it and get back to us? The thing is, this is the decision of today, and obviously I'd need to know whether you have any queries or questions before it's sealed.
Keith?
Yeah, but I mean, presumably the other 7 local authorities are already signed off on this then, aren't they?
I don't know the exact number, but I think the majority have, because we've all got different mechanisms for either delegated decisions or the rest of it. We obviously have this set up here that we have to have a meeting which curtails how quickly we can obviously look at these sorts of things.
So as you say, it would seem to me that enough legal officers of enough local authorities have probably looked through all this already.
So I think there's three recommendations in front of us today that the Cabinet Subcommittee considers the contents of this report, and having done so agrees to the proposed amendments to the shareholder agreement. And obviously I think we've been a discussion around that we're delegates any action required to complete the proposed amendments to the shareholder agreement to the service directors for regulatory and legal and community on behalf of the council as shareholder, and authorises the service director, legal and community to execute the final amended shareholder agreement. I think the only thing that we've sort of added in addition, obviously, is we obviously like to see any final version, but I think but can we move to the vote on those recommendations, James?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you. So yeah, so I think we've agreed those. Jeanette, and obviously then you know, can obviously keep us updated with any kind of minor sort of changes that we see the final version. But hopefully that gives you sufficient to proceed ahead on that basis of agreeing those 3 recommendations on the table. I don't think there is any other business today, so on that note I think we can close the meeting. Thank you for coming. Enjoy your rest of the day. Thank you.